welcome to another edition of Flea Market Fantasy, the world's second greatest Bronze Age era comic book podcast. Joining me as always is new Mike L, Kevin Jank.
I am here, or am I just an illusion that faded through a brick wall?
Yeah, just like the villain in today's story. And we are reading Amazing Spider-Man 141 from 1975. This was peak Spider-Man in my estimation, because I was born in 1975, Jank, you know? I'm an old man.
Yep.
And
Sure.
let it be known that I was born, and then the Philadelphia Flyers never won another Stanley Cup. Connected? Yeah, probably. You can thank me later.
Maybe.
But for some reason, I had this book when I was a kid. And I don't know why,
Sure.
how. Like,
Yeah,
bought it
no.
for me when
I don't think
year.
there were a lot of back issue bins back then. Probably.
Yeah, I never bought back issues until I was a teenager, you know, with the X-Men and stuff. So I don't know how I came to own this. I guess maybe someone gave it to me when I was a baby. They said, here you go.
Yeah.
I don't know. But
you can't read. You won't be able to read for a couple of years, but here you go.
But I grew up. Maybe
this.
I had like a reprint or something, you know?
Yeah, maybe. That's always possible.
Yeah. So,
or just like something they had at the dentist's office and you just kind of stole it.
So I grew up with this, and it's always fun when you don't read something for 40 years, and then you go back, I recognize this, I remember this panel, I remember this panel, I remember this panel.
Yeah, it's so like deeply ingrained in your mind that you'll never forget it.
But this is Spider-Man, written by Gerry Conway, and the artist here is Ross Andru, but the cover artist is John Romita Sr., and sadly he just recently passed away. And he was a longtime Spider-Man artist, and he was the art director at Marvel during this time. So he kind of dictated what everything was supposed to look like, you know?
Yeah, I'm glad he at least did the cover, because I thought this was your big tribute to John Romita Sr. was having a book that he even draw.
Yeah, I actually picked this before I heard the news about him. But yeah, he did the cover at least. And Ross Andru then took over the book after Romita Sr. left. And I got to tell you, I'm a big fan of Ross Andru on Spider-Man. I mean, this is Spider-Man for me, you know? Like, this is what he's supposed to look like. So
I mean, I'm not going to say it's my favorite Spider-Man of all time, but it's damn solid, especially for that era.
Well, Romita Sr. is my favorite. But I think Ross Andru's really good. But we'll talk about them a little bit later, although we've talked about Conway and Andru many times on this show. So the villain in this book is Mysterio. And you referenced it earlier there, the illusion. Are you a big Mysterio guy, Jake?
Yes, honestly, I would say he's one of my favorite Spider-Man villains. I'm going to say 95% of it is the costume. As a character, maybe not the greatest, but that costume, one of the best in comics.
Well, go ahead and describe it for the kids, what his costume looks like.
It's got a great color scheme. It's got that purple and black color scheme that's always good, especially on a villain. So we'll start off with the creme de la creme of this whole costume is the fishbowl helmet.
You mean purple and green, right?
Yeah, isn't that what I said?
You said purple and black, just to make sure.
Oh, shit. I went temporarily colorblind.
I was like, wait a minute. Am I more
color
drunk than
dyslexia
usual?
thing?
Yeah, purple and green. Yeah, green. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. So he's got the fishbowl helmet. It's basically a very round dome that he's got over his head that I think is supposed to be filled with smoke at all times, so you can't really make out his face.
Yeah,
I guess there's different situations. Sometimes maybe it's just kind of a two-way mirror, but most versions I think it's kind of filled with smoke.
Yeah, you can never see his face inside the fishbowl. It was always
just There'll be certain covers I've seen where like painted covers almost where you can kind of see like the silhouette of his face coming through like the smoke, and it looks really cool. But yeah, it's a great helmet. It's just amazing. And then he's got a purple cape, held on by two kind of eyeball shaped, like diamonds, kind of where they connect to the neck area. And then he's just got like a green bodysuit, no belt or nothing, just dark green, kind of scaly. And then he's got kind of lighter green boots and gloves with kind of fancy, collars on them.
Yeah, they always have little like spikes at the corners of the gloves coming up, or points or something. Yeah,
kind of little designs. He's very theatrical.
And there's a reason, because his real, of course, you know his real name, I'm sure, but Quentin Beck.
Mm-hmm.
They
Although, spoiler alert, that may not be the Mysterio we're talking about in today's issue.
Oh, wait a minute. Not one of these deals. Oh, no.
Yeah. You got hoodwinked.
Oh, no. Quentin Beck, of course, he also sang Loser in the early 90s. Remember him?
Yeah.
Quentin Beck? Yeah, he's great.
Perdedor.
His first appearance was Amazing Spider-Man 13, 1964.
Yeah, early on.
Created by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko. And he was a special effects master and stuntman working for a major Hollywood studio.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I like that as a background. That's pretty good.
Now he turned to a life of crime. And he joined the Sinister Six. Now, in the old days, whenever Mike L was the co-host of the show, every time we mentioned the Sinister Six, I would ask him, Mike L, can you name the Sinister Six? And he would always fail miserably. So, Kevin Jank, can you name the Sinister Six?
Oh, I mean, I could do this one in my sleep because I went on a quest to get all Sinister Six Funkos. Even when they didn't have an actual Mysterio yet, they only had like a zombie Mysterio and a movie Mysterio, like from the the second Spider-Man movie. So I had to kind of like combine the two. Like I kind of took the head off one, which looked better, and the body off the other one. And then I kind of had to get some like silly putty and paint over like the zombified spots where it was all torn open.
You're modifying your Funkos.
Yep, I made myself a custom Mysterio just because I love him so much. But yeah, your Sinister Six would be Dr. Octopus, Mysterio, Vulture, Kraven the Hunter, Sandman, and Electro.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Sometimes people think Rhino's in there, And,
yeah, I think that was the cartoon show that gave people that impression. The 90s cartoon show, he was on there. Of course, on that one, for some reason, they decided Sinister was too evil for children. So they changed it to the Insidious Six. How that's any better,
what?
I don't know.
That's terrible. Who gave that the green light?
Like, what's so wrong with the word sinister? Especially, okay, get this. You can't say sinister on this Fox cartoon show, but on the X-Men, you can have a character named Mr. Sinister.
Yeah, that doesn't make much sense at all. Like alliteration is awesome, Sinister Six. Can't have it. All right, anyway. All right, what else should we know about Mysterio? So, he always tried to trick Spider-Man, like with illusions, like you said, right? He had special effects and craziness. Didn't he have some kind of wacky shoes so he could like walk upside down on walls and stuff?
Oh, I'm sure he did, yeah. Any kind of weird tricks. He's almost like a magician / stuntman.
Yeah, basically.
He's always kind of, little things going on.
Now, years later, Mysterio's existence takes a sad, tragic turn, right? Doesn't he, your buddy Kevin Smith, didn't he write some sort of ridiculous
he wrote
story?
quite the story. Kevin Smith did about 8 issues of Daredevil. It was a very short run, but memorable. It basically was what brought Daredevil back to prominence. Daredevil was pretty much middling throughout the 90s. Nobody really wanted to write it that much. It was not selling at all. So they started this whole Marvel Knights line where it was going to be KNIGHT. And it was going to be kind of the street level heroes, but kind of, making them grittier and a little bit, more street savvy and stuff like that. So, they had Kevin Smith come in for those first 8 issues drawn by, Joe Quesada, who had pretty much taken over Marvel, I think, by that point. And so they did an 8-issue arc called Guardian Devil. And the plot kind of revolved around, Daredevil had found this child, and all these things were trying to convince him that this was like the Antichrist child. And, Daredevil being a good Catholic boy, he kind of was buying into it, and he didn't know what to do with this kid. Like, what should I do? So he had kind of, a big, religious quandary he found himself in. But it turned out at the end that was all a plot by Mysterio just to mess with him. Because he apparently was dying of both a brain tumor and lung cancer.
Probably because of all that smoke in his helmet.
Yeah, it was basically, I think it was all the chemicals that he used to, torment Spider-Man over the years finally caught up with him. And, he decided to go out with one big bang, but I guess he kind of was able to realize that Spider-Man wasn't Spider-Man. He was he was a clone. He was like, that's not the real guy, so I'm not going to go after Spider-Man. That's stupid. So I guess he settled on Daredevil, as a good runner-up, because I guess he was like, me and Daredevil are kind of a lot alike. Like, we're both kind of nobodies. We're runners up in the hero/villain game.
I don't know about that. Real
Yeah,
shot at Daredevil.
Jossie's a good guy, but yeah, I guess from the Pantheon doesn't rank quite at the top. So, yeah, that plot ended up failing, of course, and, that story ended with Mysterio basically pulling a Kraven the Hunter and, killing himself with a shotgun.
Yeah, because doesn't Daredevil say something like, Mysterio's just a cheap copy of everybody. He's not good at, like, he's not really unique or anything. And then I think he says, yeah, well, now I'm going to copy Kraven the Hunter, and he shoots himself.
Yeah.
So. But it gets weirder after that, right?
Yeah, it sure does. I mean, from there, it goes in many different directions. At one point, he kind of reappears in like a darker version of his costume, and he does take the helmet off one point, and his half of his face is missing. So he's clearly like on loan from hell, essentially, is what's going on there. But then he comes back, and they kind of just like drop it all for a while. But eventually, in one of the more recent stories from the last couple of years, they do finally start touching on that, and he confirms that, yes, he is out of hell and now fully back alive, but he was kind of tied in with the Green Goblin and that kind of stuff. That has a lot to do with why he's back, but he did end up coming back. And yes, he is fully alive, and he kind of went into, he made himself like a new identity at one point and was making a movie that ended up hiring Mary Jane Watson to be the main actress. So Mary Jane was working for Mysterio, and she actually knew it was him, like, pretty early on, and still decided to just keep going and make the movie. Because he was like, oh, come on, I've changed. He was like, all right. You seem like a good guy. Better than, like, Bryan Singer.
Yeah. That sounds ridiculous. All right, is there anything else we should know about Mysterio?
Well, there's one other thing I guess we can talk about is, apparently, you know, in the right context, Mysterio could be a real badass, because there was one time that he defeated and killed all of the X-Men.
What?
Yeah. For real. So apparently what happened in the Old Man Logan, in the Old Man Logan universe, basically what happened was all the villains teamed up, and they're like, all right, we're going to finally take down all these heroes that keep screwing up our plans by all working together and stuff like that. And they kind of went after different targets than they normally do, kind of like acts of vengeance. But Mysterio was sent to take out the X-Men, and he basically just, worked his special effects magic on Wolverine, tricking his senses and making him think that all these villains were attacking him, when actually those quote-unquote villains were the other X-Men, and he was just slaughtering the hell out of them.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I was aware of this, but what I don't understand is Wolverine's sense. How could he trick his senses? Like illusions, how could they trick his senses?
Yeah, I mean, I guess he must have used, chemicals and stuff like that. I'm sure that was involved.
All right, I suppose. So yeah, Wolverine and Old Man Logan, he murdered all the X-Men.
Yeah, at the hands of Mysterio. So yeah, I mean, if played right, I could see Mysterio being a real threat. They just have never really gone that direction with him.
Now, I haven't seen any of those new Spider-Man movies, and Jake Gyllenhaal played Mysterio in the second one, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
And what did you think of that?
I mean, I'm in the unpopular camp of not liking those new Spider-Man movies as much as I like Tom Holland as Spider-Man. I found those movies quite awful. Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio was okay. It was pretty unmemorable. He was kind of just playing up this whole angle of, oh, I'm like from another universe, and I'm a hero. So you should totally give me the glasses that Tony Stark left you as, his last will and testament. And Peter Parker's just kind of like, yeah, okay, sure, why not? And then it turns out, no, he was not a hero. So, yeah.
Why did he want to get those glasses?
I forget exactly. They're powerful. Oh, I think they controlled all the drones, basically. There's a whole army of drones that were controlled by these glasses. So once Mysterio got his hands on those, it was, pretty bad.
Yeah, that sounds really dumb.
Yeah, you wouldn't, I get Spider-Man's like, oh, I don't want to be a hero right now. Like, this is too much responsibility, but don't just give them away to some guy you met 2 hours ago. Yeah. That doesn't seem like a good idea. Give it to Captain America.
That would be a good idea, Yeah. Like Captain America. All right, well, let's look at this book.
All right.
Since that's all we can get out of Mysterio. Let's talk about this John Romita Sr. cover there, Jank. Why don't you describe it for us?
Pretty glorious cover.
Yeah.
We got the Marvel Comics Group banner across the top. It's kind of like just a freestanding Spider-Man in a circle instead of a full-on corner box there.
Yeah, that's unusual, right?
Yeah, I kind of like it. Pretty cool. And then it's got kind of like a red gradient, and then it kind of goes down to orange and yellow as the page goes on. And it says, we got Mysterio kind of in the middle saying, admit it, Webhead, you're finished. Even you can't survive an attack by all of us, because he's not alone here. He's got the Vulture and Morbius and the Jackal and Dr. Octopus all coming out of the smoke to attack Spider-Man. We kind of get a shot of Spider-Man's butt facing the camera. So that's always fun. That's for the ladies. And Mysterio, it says Mysterio is back, and this time he's not alone.
Yeah, we've had issues with this kind of composition before. I remember Nova.
Vigilante.
Yeah, where the hero has his back to the camera. But I think here it works because for a few reasons. One, Spider-Man's so distinctive, his costume, and he's got the big logo on his back. So, I mean, it's Spider-Man, obviously. But just the way he's positioned, like he's crouching down and leaning to the left, and he's not straight Spider-Man up and down. Yeah, like the Nova and Vigilante covers are pretty much straight up and down, and it wasn't so dynamic. Also, you mentioned the color gradient.
Kind of got like a very black pants, and that's it. Not a very distinctive costume.
And you mentioned the color gradient. The red part at the top, it's all spider web, and it kind of like, it's like the Amazing Spider-Man is hanging in the web almost. So that's
you're right.
Interesting little take on the title there. So,
I did like the title later on when they made it more kind of webby. Like the Spider-Man part of it got to be more kind of jaggedy a little bit, and I like that version more, but this is a good looking logo.
Yeah, it's pretty great. So, all right, now let's open up the book here. And the man's name appears to be Mysterio. That's the title of this book. And first thing we see is Spider-Man driving a dune buggy. What?
Not just any dune buggy.
It's the Spider-Mobile. This is one of the few appearances of the Spider-Mobile. I'm sure you're very familiar with the Spider-Mobile, Jank. Would you like to fill in the kids?
You know what? I don't know all the story, but they kind of briefly mention it in here. Apparently some car company was just like, hey, we want to make you a Spider-Mobile. And he was like, okay, cool.
No, actually what happened is this car company, the Corona, I believe is the name of wait, I have a note here somewhere. I believe it's Corona. Corona Motors, in an effort to promote their new non-polluting car engine, hired the advertising firm of Carter and Lombardo to approach Spider-Man about building a Spider-Mobile. So, yeah. That's weird. Now, when they first approached Spider-Man about this, the advertising agent fellas, he turned them down. He said, that's a stupid idea. Why do I need a dune buggy? I can swing from webbing, all throughout the city. Yep. It makes no sense.
That's the thing that, like, Peter Parker never got his license either. I don't know that he's actually licensed to drive.
I did not know that. So he turned them down, but then, Peter Parker's always hurting for money, He needed, to pay the rent. Or, Aunt May probably needed one of them surgeries again. She's always needing surgery. So he went back to his advertising fellows, and he said, all right, I'll take they offered him $1,000. He says, all right, I'll take the $1,000. It's got to be in cash, though, and I want it, right now. And because I got to pay the rent. And he said, all right. And then he's swinging out the window, and he's like, hey, let me know what you want because he was supposed to build the car.
Did they give him materials?
That's what he asked him. He's like, hey, wait, let me know when you have the car. And he's like, no, you have to build it. And he's like, wait, what? I have to build the car. So he went to his buddy, the Human Torch, over at the old Baxter building. And they worked on it together, and they teamed up to build the Spider-Mobile.
Yeah, it had a real illustrious career, the Spider-Mobile. He wrecks it basically right away.
Well, it comes back then later.
Yeah,
we'll get to that in a second. But the reason, of course, they made the Spider-Mobile was a toy company approached Marvel, and they said, hey, all your heroes should have their own cars, you know. So Stan Lee said, oh, that's a great idea. So he said, hey, Gerry Conway, write up a story where Spider-Man gets a car. So that's what happened.
At least they had the good sense to stop with the Spider-Mobile and not try to give everyone a car.
Yeah, I don't know if they actually manufactured, because I would imagine Hulk probably had a Jeep or something. But I don't know.
Give Daredevil a car that can somehow see for him.
But this is issue 141, and I believe, according to the editor notes in this book that we're reading here today, that this idea was first pitched to Spider-Man in issue 126.
Yep. Yeah.
So that's 15 months. They were really...
Well, it takes a long time to build a car when you don't have a factory. You're just one guy.
So, yeah.
Maybe two guys, but Human Torch is not really big on making cars, I don't believe.
So yeah, Spider-Man's driving this little dune buggy, and it's got like red webbing on the sides, and it's blue in the middle, and it's got Spider-Man faces on the hubcaps of the wheels. And I also like that the license plate is Spidey.
Yeah. He had to pay extra for that, I'm sure. Should have just gone with the dealer plates.
Our buddy cousin Brandon could have put him on Vanity State, that blog he used to run.
Yeah.
People had Vanity license plates. But the police are chasing him through the city there. But this is a great shot here by Ross Andru, the splash page, because look at that little spider buggy, man. It's hopping on two wheels, and it's like, oh, it's going out of control, you know. All right, so the cops are chasing Spider-Man, and they think they have him boxed in, but he drives up and down some library steps or something. I don't know if that's a library, but it looks like a library.
Well, the Rocky just goes right up the steps, but in a car.
So he eludes the cops. And then he's trying to get away from the cops. They're still chasing him. And he says, oh, I'm going to turn down this alley, you know. And then he's wondering, hey, why aren't the cops following me anymore? What's going on here? But he runs right off a pier. Boom, right into the water.
Yep.
And
just dunks his Spidey mobile right in the water.
Yeah, so he climbs out, and the cops are looking for him. And he's hiding underneath the dock there. And the cops are like, yeah, dummy. He just drove right into the river. What's that guy doing? You know? And the one guy's like, good riddance. One less crook to worry about. Because the cops think Spider-Man's a crook.
Yeah.
It's because of that.
I forget why at this point they really have such a mad on for him. It seems like more than usual.
It's a yellow journalism from Jonah Jameson. You know? He's always polluting the airwaves. Well, at this point, it's the newspaper print. Not so much the airwaves. But hyping up that Spider-Man's a criminal, you know? That Jameson's a real jerk.
He eventually came around.
Did he? I don't know.
Yeah. There was, I think it was maybe only 5 years ago or so. Like, there was a story where he was kind of like, very at the end of his rope. Like I don't know, was just kind of burned out, and like, he had lost his father who had married, Aunt May at one point. And then, his dad died, and he was all sad about that. So, like, Spider-Man actually showed up, and like, in just a moment of just like, I feel so bad for this guy, actually unmasked himself to Jonah Jameson and told him like the entire story. I'm just like, hey, like, this is why I'm Spider-Man. Like, you know, Aunt May, I didn't want her to find out about this kind of stuff and put her in danger. So that's why I wear this mask. It's not because I'm a criminal. Like, he basically told him all that stuff. And Jameson, since that time, has been like the number one. He like pulled a complete about face and is like, I love Spider-Man. Spider-Man's been mistreated all these years.
Wow, that's an interesting decision. I don't know if I like it. It's certainly interesting.
I do. Yeah. It's very cool.
Yeah, but I like Jonah when he's yelling at him, you know?
Yeah, I mean, they still bump heads a lot because he kind of went too far the other direction and that kind of thing. And so he's always trying to get like Spider-Man to do a podcast with him and stuff like that. So
but
Jameson, the kind of wacky Jameson charm.
Jameson should have just said, I win, you know? And he's like, I know Spider-Man. And then he'd run and print a big expose about Peter Parker being Spider-Man. And,
that would kind of be the end of the comic. They had to, have to make a deal with the devil to get that secret back in the bottle last time, so.
Yeah, literally. They made a deal with the devil. All right, so Spider-Man climbs out of the river there, and he's going to swing his way home, but his web shooters are all waterlogged. So they just squirt out. Yeah. He's got to walk home, and he says, some days,
yeah, in your first lab.
So next we see him at college. Oh, but so the dune buggy, the Spider-Mobile, it's in the river, and Spider-Man just leaves it there. Because he doesn't.
Well, the cops are still looking for him. He's like, I gotta get out of here.
He's like, I'll come back and get it later, But he never does. And then when he finally does come to look for it, it's gone. And do you know who got it, Jank?
No.
The Tinkerer.
Oh, of course. That would make sense.
He wanted to tinker with it. And he basically turns it into like Maximum Overdrive, like a haunted car. And the car tries to murder Spider-Man at some point.
The Revenge of the Spider-Mobile.
I think this was around issue 160 or so.
Oh, that's great.
So again, like almost 2 years later, it comes back. But
I made you.
And then eventually, I guess the Spider-Mobile ends up in the Marvel universe. It's at the Smithsonian or something.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I know they've tried to bring it back now and then.
It's popped back many times over the years.
Yeah,
bring it back.
As soon as somebody remembers it exists, they're like, "Oh yeah, let's work this in somehow."
So now we cut back to Peter Parker. He's in college and he's in Professor Warren's class.
Yeah,
biochemistry.
Warren.
Chemistry.
Seemingly just a normal professor.
Yeah, and he's falling asleep here, Peter Parker, and Professor Warren yells at him, and he holds him after class. And Peter, I must admit, I'm appalled. Because of your marks last year, you've had to take Biochem 106 over this semester. And Peter, your second chance is your last chance. And look at this Parker creep. He's yawning right in his face. He's like, come on, Parker.
He looks like a really old man there.
Get it together, Parker. What are you doing? But, he tells the professor, hey, don't you worry, Professor Warren. I'll get better or whatever. But Jack, spoiler alert.
Warren is still like, he still believes in this kid, even though he's like falling asleep. He had to take this class yet again. Like, what do you have to do to like get on this guy's bad side all the way?
Which is kind of weird because later spoiler alert, who's Professor Warren?
Professor Warren is the Jackal.
Yeah, he's the Jackal.
Yeah. You think he would not like Peter Parker since, as the Jackal, he was madly in love with Gwen Stacy, who, Peter was dating. So Peter would be his arch enemy, you would think.
Yeah, see, I don't know much about this whole second clone thing. Or this is the first Clone Saga, right?
Yeah, this is the first Clone Saga that they're building up to. I think the first, like right before this issue, there was, I think, 2 issues that kind of dealt with the Grizzly, who was kind of sicked on Spider-Man by the Jackal. So there's been a lot of Jackal stuff building up to this. But we haven't found out who he is yet.
Because last week you mentioned you thought this was part of the Clone Saga. And I think maybe 2 issues from now, there's the cover of Gwen Stacy's leg and him, Spider-Man, pointing. You can't see who it is. And he's like, So basically the Clone Saga is someone clones Gwen Stacy.
Yep. Right. And it's the Jackal, Miles Warren, who apparently was madly in love with her, like since the moment she entered his classroom, what a creep.
Yeah, this Professor Warren, he's at least in his 50s, at least.
Yeah.
Gray hair, glasses, mustache. And, he's obsessed with his co-ed, this Gwen Stacy lady. Now, is he because Spider-Man also gets a clone around this, or is this, I'm so confused about the clone stuff.
Yeah. Basically, the Clone Saga kind of culminates with he knocks out Spider-Man, and then Spider-Man wakes up, and there's 2 of him now. So there's one of them's a clone, but he's injected him. He claims he's injected the clone with like memory RNA or mRNA that he took out of Spider-Man. So they both have the same memories. So neither one of them know which one's the real one. And they kind of duke it out, and there ends up being some kind of big explosion. And, of course, only one of them lives. And so Spider-Man takes the body of that other Spider-Man and
throws it down a chimney, right?
Yeah. Industrial smokestack. Yeah. I did give it a nice cremation. Yeah. But it turns out that clone did not die, in fact, and was, got out and spent the next 5 years on the run only to come back eventually and, cause havoc.
Yeah, which was the much hated Clone Saga. When was that? In the 90s? Or?
Yeah, that was probably 93 to 96 or 94 to 96, somewhere around there.
Yeah, people did not seem to enjoy that, right?
No, it went on too long. The biggest problem with the original Clone Saga, though, so after he disposes of the clone's body, he's still kind of grappling with, oh, I don't know, maybe I am the clone. So he goes to see Dr. Connors and has him, like, take a blood sample and stuff. He's like, can you try to figure out, make sure that I am the real one and stuff like that? And Dr. Connors is like, yeah, I'll do it. Just give me a couple hours. And so Spider-Man goes around and he gets in some kind of a fight. And as he thinks he's going to die, he starts thinking of Mary Jane. And for some reason, that convinces him, oh, if I'm thinking of Mary Jane instead of Gwen, I must be the real one. So he goes back and takes the test or the lab results without even looking at him and just throws them out the window. He's like, I'm the real one. I'm like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
If you both have the same memories, why wouldn't you both think the same thing?
Yeah. Huh.
So they left that window open there with that, I feel like. So they kind of had to do something with it eventually. Unfortunately, it went on too long in the 90s.
Yeah. Every comic book character's history is so terrible after, like, a certain point. It's so ridiculous.
You gotta keep kicking that can down the road.
All right, so after he leaves Professor Warren's class here, he runs into Mary Jane.
Yeah.
Good old Mary Jane Watson. And
she's not in college, but she just showed up, I guess, to see Peter. That's nice.
Yeah, she was in college, but her doctor told her to take a break, to take a semester off at least, because she needs to heal her body after being caught in an apartment explosion. Peter's old apartment exploded or something. What? I don't remember this.
Yeah, that was when Harry became the Green Goblin the first time.
Oh, wow.
Blew up the apartment.
So poor Mary Jane, but she shows up to see Pete. She's even carrying his books. She's way into Pete. Now, are they dating at this point? I don't think, right? Or...
I think they're not quite dating, but she's been like the shoulder he's been leaning on, since Gwen died, and clearly they're, move in that direction. But she seems very into him. She's just like, you're like a little Charlie Brown with football always getting yanked away, but I still like you anyway. I'm like, oh, this is the perfect woman.
Yeah. But as Peter Parker, they're walking through the falling leaves, in this autumn day, and arm in arm. But Peter looks up at the sky and he sees the severed head of Gwen Stacy. Well, I guess it's just a smiling face of Gwen Stacy. But
like a Barbie doll that someone popped out.
Her head got yanked off when she fell, and her neck broke. But and he's still looking at Gwen Stacy. And there's Mary Jane there. And look, they're holding hands now. Oh, they're holding hands. So they're falling in love a little bit, Look at that. Who did you prefer, Gwen Stacy or Mary Jane?
I mean, definitely after that whole Sins Past thing where she slept with Norman Osborn, Gwen Stacy was dead to me. But so that's okay. But I think I would still go Mary Jane. I think
Mary Jane's where it's at.
Through. Yeah. It's a good juxtaposition because she's like, the party girl, always having to bring Peter to like Hollywood parties and shit like that. And he's like, I don't want to do that. But he has to do it anyway, so it kind of gets him out of his element.
Yeah, Mary Jane's the best. All right, so now we see Mr. J. Jonah Jameson taking Robbie Robertson to his own gentleman's club. $5,000 a year.
It's like a classy gentleman's club, like an actual gentleman's
club.
Yeah,
yeah, not a strip club, club.
Yeah. It's like a Hellfire Club place almost, except less body.
Yeah, like Victorian era gentleman's club is what we're talking about here. So Jonah, while they're enjoying their brandy or whatever, Jonah gets a call, and it looks like something shady's going on here. And do you know what this call's about?
I was trying to remember, and I don't quite remember.
Yeah,
maybe it's Mysterio. It could be.
Yeah, they're teasing that he's about to hatch some secret plan, probably to screw over Spider-Man. Yeah,
as he has many times before, like the Scorpion and Spider Slayer robots and so many.
So now we come back to Peter, but he's in his Spider-Man outfit and he's swinging over the city. And, he's just doing what he does, stealing food from passersby.
Yeah.
That's right.
What a jerk.
Explain this, Jank. What the F is here?
Yeah, you forget, like, in these early days, I mean, it was, I think, even worse in, like, the Stan Lee era. Like, but Spider-Man, they try to make him, like, this relatable, normal guy, but he's really just kind of a jerk a lot of the time. So yeah, this guy is walking by. He just got some McDonald's, and Spider-Man's like, "Oh, I wish I could have some McDonald's, but I can't go in this costume. They'll like arrest me." So instead of just changing into his civvies and going in there, he just decides to steal the guy's food while he's not looking, yank it away with a web line, and he's like, "Oh, I'll put this down, and then maybe I'll web him a couple bucks, and he can just go get a new one. Good as new."
Yeah, he's like, after I'm done eating, I'll web him some money. Like, so you expect the guys just stand there while you eat?
Yeah.
But he doesn't even get to finish eating because right away his spider sense is tingling. So that guy just lost out on his meal and the money. And
I mean, I would be pissed. I would be writing to Jameson like, "I will help you. What money do you need to bring this guy to justice? I want my McDonald's back."
But Spider-Man, he's getting all woozy, you know, and all dizzy and whatnot. And he falls because there's smoke around his head, and then he falls.
Probably had the grip.
Yeah. But he falls and he grabs a like fire escape ladder and it like yanks his shoulder out of the socket too, you know. And he's like, that hurts. So he's a wounded Spider-Man here. He's hanging on to his shoulder and there's still smoke all around him. It's very smoky, you know. But he sees a figure over on the opposite building there, and he can't tell who it is.
I like that he says, like, after thinking about it all day, I've got a pretty good idea who that somebody might be. Like, really? It took you all day to come up with who this was?
Yeah.
Someone casting illusions, making you think a pier was an alley? Like, who do you think it's going to be?
Yeah, we did. We should have hit that harder. Yeah, he thought he was driving down an alley, but he went off the pier. And then he was reflecting on that, thinking, am I losing my mind? Am I going crazy? What's going on with me? So, so that makes him think, it probably is Mysterio. But he just sits there and watches Mysterio as he gets closer and closer to him, running right at him. And then Mysterio just punches him with both fists right in the face. Whack.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
I like it. It's such a weird way to punch people.
Yes.
Especially a guy with spider sense. Like, why is he standing still that long for this guy to run at him? Both fists out.
Then Mysterio kicks him, and the sound effect is bunt, which is unusual.
Perfect.
He wants to get the runner to second. And then he does some crazy handstand kick. So he's really laying into Spider-Man. And
Mysterio is a lot more physical than the normal one.
Yeah, that's what Spider-Man notices here. He's like, he's holding off on his usual melodramatic taunting, but he's stronger, much stronger than I remember. And so Mysterio jumps over the ledge of the building there, and he's running along the wall. So Spider-Man's chasing him. They're running like, sticking to the wall, running sideways on the wall there. And then Spider-Man says, "No, this is crazy." And what does he see there, Jay? Coming right at him.
My thing's loading.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to. A truck is coming right at him. A truck.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, a Mack truck on the side of the wall.
Yeah, that's unusual, right?
Yeah. And Spider-Man, who, has spider sense, and you should know this is not real, is still like, "Oh my God, a truck on the wall. How could this be?" And then he jumps out of the way and injures himself some more.
Yeah, he says his elbow feels shattered when he lands. And then he looks up and he sees the Green Goblin peeking out of a brick wall. And here comes Tarantula.
The Vulture and Tarantula, yep. The Molten Man.
Molten Man, yeah. And so they're all coming like ghosts out of the ground and this brick wall. And there's some more. There's Morbius, the Lizard, Grizzly. It's just like a big bear guy. Hammerhead, the Jackal.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so Spider-Man's like, "Oh, no, what's going on?" And Green Goblin...
He knows for a fact this isn't real. He saw them materializing through a wall, and he's fighting Mysterio. Like, he should know beyond a shadow of a doubt none of these people are there.
And then Green Goblin throws a pumpkin bomb at him. It goes right through his chest, So he's like, "It's a trick. You're trying to confuse me. All of you, you're all coming at me, jumping on me. Why don't you leave? Why don't you go away and leave me alone?" So he just starts wailing on him, and he's punching the brick wall, And "Why don't you let me live? Why don't you let me live? Why don't you let me..." And then he looks, "Oh my goodness, I've just been hitting a brick wall." And he looks down at his hands, and they're all gnarled, and the costume's ripped off his hands, and his web shooters are all busted up.
Yeah. It's a pretty good looking picture. Yeah. The tattered clothing on his hands, yeah.
So then he's still getting dizzy, little sparks around his head. And he's like, it was that mist that affected me more than I thought. Can't think clearly. So but then who does he see? Mysterio. He's materializing in the smoke. So he goes to jump at Mysterio, and flang, he hits his head on a fire escape, like Alvin Flang from Love on a Leash. If you're listening to this and you've never seen the movie Love on a Leash, it's about a fella who turns into a dog and then turns into a fella sometimes, and a lady falls in love with him. And when he's a dog, his name is Alvin Flang.
The even weird thing is, I don't think he was ever actually a man previously. I think he was a dog who somehow became a person.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. He was a dog. He became a man,
Yeah.
not really a man. He became a dog.
Yep.
Yeah. It's very strange. But anyway.
Anyway.
Yeah, Spider-Man hits his head on the fire escape. Flang knocks himself unconscious. Now that had to be quite the blow to the head on a metal fire escape. I would imagine like his face would be all busted up, you know, but just his hands the next day when he shows up for work. His hands are all bandaged up, and I was trying to see if he had a black eye there, but I don't think so. I'm not doing that.
No, I'm not seeing it.
So who are these people? This is Ned. What's his name?
Ned Leeds and Betty Brant.
Betty Brant. Yeah, that was his first girlfriend, right? Betty Brant.
Yep. Yeah. Jonah Jameson's secretary.
Now, Ned Leeds, for a long time, it was thought that he was the Hobgoblin, but then they said he's not the Hobgoblin, right?
Yeah, correct. He was just kind of brainwashed into being the Hobgoblin for a little bit, and unfortunately that little bit included when he was murdered.
Yeah.
So. Oops.
Also, dig his fashion sense, this Ned Leeds. Purple pants, a pink tie with green polka dots.
He went to the Bruce Banner School of dressing up.
That's great. But so they're asking Peter, what's wrong with your hands there, buddy? And he's like, I got caught in a mix-up with Spider-Man and Mysterio. I was caught in the middle of their fight, you know?
Yeah, that sounds believable.
Yeah, why would you even say that? You know.
Pictures of Spider-Man from, 1 foot away from him. That's how you do it.
Yeah. So, but he says, hey, Mysterio's back. He's got a grudge against the web slinger. We gotta, be on the lookout for Mysterio. And they say, Mysterio, you sure? Because you must have seen a ghost. Mysterio died in prison almost a year ago.
Done.
And then Parker's looking at his hands, his bandaged hands, and he's like, then it's finally happened. I'm cracking up. Peter Parker is insane. That's how it ends. And now we don't believe it for a minute, comrades, and neither should you. For the full story behind the story, tune in next issue when we'll present The Man Who Hated Spider-Man. So, Jank, earlier you teased that this wasn't the real Mysterio doing this?
Yes, we find out in the next issue that this Mysterio is actually a guy named Danny Burkhart. I believe he was like, cellmates with Mysterio or something like that. But Mysterio did actually fake his death, so he is still out there. So that part is, that tease kind of works. But yeah, it turns out this Mysterio is actually a different guy.
Oh, okay. How about that? So there it is, Spider-Man 141. And we mentioned it's written by Gerry Conway. Of course, we've talked about him many times on this show. He's the guy that stole the Punisher. But he also did a lot of other stuff. He took over from Stan Lee when he was just 19 years old.
Oh my God.
That's not crazy.
Could
you imagine?
I couldn't do anything at 19.
I was having trouble with my colors when I was 19. But could you imagine today, like
comic going, like at the time?
Yeah, like Stan Lee. You're taking over for Stan Lee, the guy
who wrote, created all of these characters.
A 19-year-old,
be the follow-up guy.
And of course, he got into because he was buddies with Roy Thomas, so he started. He did a bunch of. He started writing when he was like 16 or something for DC, I think. And then they gave him some jobs at Marvel, and he did a couple issues here or there. And then all right, well, there you go. And when he took the writing test at Marvel, Stan Lee didn't even like it, but Roy Thomas wanted to give him a chance. So Roy Thomas was the guy that, and next thing you know, he's writing The Amazing Spider-Man. How do you think all the other guys at Marvel felt about this? Wait, what?
Shooter never would have gone for this.
But I will say, he did a banner job here on Spider-Man. He was really good out of the gate at 19,
I thought this issue he captured the voice of that Stan Lee era pretty well.
Yeah.
He was throwing in all kind of weird little, witticisms, and the text boxes would have little asides and stuff. It was very Stan Lee-esque and fun.
He had a 3-year run from issue 111 to 149. So we're getting close to the end here for his run. And his storylines, he wrote the death of Gwen Stacy, and he introduced the Punisher, and introduced is in quotes because stole, and then Jackal. He also created the Jackal. But yeah, Gerry Conway, he was great here. And like over the years, we've done many Gerry Conway books on the show, and usually much later in his career, whether from DC or other Marvel titles. And I will say his initial run as a 19-year-old was the best I've read of Gerry Conway. Like
it was downhill instead of up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would agree from the ones we've read, that I've been here for. Yeah, I would say that's true. But yeah, banner work here.
Yeah, he does a real good job.
He really made Mary Jane seem like a great character. So a lot of that was him, I think. She was kind of a side, character beforehand and during like the Stan Lee era. She was never really taken that seriously, but Gerry Conway really brought a lot out of her.
Well, because I guess when Gwen's there,
Yeah.
Conway's doing a lot of nice, like even the dopey Spider-Mobile. But like we said, that was a long arching story from issue 126 to like for a young writer to be doing that sort of stuff, like to be continuing a storyline that long. To keep it.
I mean, the Clone Saga, whether you like it or not, went on for a good couple, bunch of issues. They teased that out pretty well.
So like this is really good, and you see he does the tease there with Jameson on the phone, like, hey, what's that about? What's So he's doing a lot of really good stuff here, and just the internal conflict in this issue of Peter Parker thinking he's going insane, and he's still trying to get over Gwen's death, and then he's got Mary Jane, who he should be falling in love with. And so, yeah, this is when I think Spider-Man, this is what I think, Peter Parker, the good guy trying to do what's right, but always struggling and failing somehow.
Unless he follows fast food, then, he'll throw all his morals out the window.
And Mysterio, that was some great stuff. The scenes of the Mack truck on the side of the wall and all the villains coming out of the walls, his busting up hands. That's all great stuff,
Yeah.
Good on you, Gerry Conway. The
artist, he could have avoided the whole busted hands thing because he's chasing Mysterio and never once just fires a web at him. That could have stopped him.
Maybe they're still waterlogged. Well, no, he was swinging through the city.
Yeah, he's swinging around. He's like, he's probably leading me into a trap, but I'll run after him anyway. Why don't you just shoot your webs at him?
Yeah.
So maybe the Spider-Man's not the brightest, but
he's trying to make it fun, Really fun.
Give it a sporting chance.
So the artist here is Ross Andru, and we've talked about him many times on the shows before. He was the artist of the Doc Savage issue we did.
Shaun of the She-Devil.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. But here on Spider-Man, he took over for Romita Sr., and he had quite the run. From issues 125 to 185, he did 55 of those 60 issues. And that was basically a 5-year run from 1973 to 1978. And he was like 46 when he started on Spider-Man. And Gerry Conway said what he loved about Ross Andru was that he had a great sense of space. And he said, well, a lot of modern artists are figure-oriented. Ross Andru was like space-oriented in terms of like how the panel was laid out and the buildings and the background. He said Andru would just go through New York City and just do studies of various buildings, and because he wanted to know where to put Spider-Man in the city and everything. So that's pretty interesting, because nowadays, do people really do that much in-depth background stuff? Do they? I don't know. I don't read more comics.
I think most of it's digital, to be honest. Like, I feel like they just copy and paste stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm a big fan of Ross Andru, and I don't know why he doesn't get more hype as a Spider-Man artist.
Yeah, I guess he just wasn't quite. He's similar to John Romita Sr., but not quite as good. So I guess people just kind of overlook it.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you come in following up like a Hall of Fame quarterback or something. You're the next guy up, even though you're really good. It's like, still not as good as that guy. So
yep. Yeah. We only got Ruin Our Hearts for one.
Big fan of his work. Anything else about this book, Jank, that you would like to mention or point out?
You know what? I don't think so. I think we hit everything.
I think we did. But this is the golden era of Spider-Man for me. Young Gerry Conway and either Romita or Andru doing the art. And I love all this very much. Like this is
I'm not going to say it's all the best stories. Like there's certainly a lot of crap in here.
Yeah. But this is what
the villains are fun.
Hey, the issue where I think it's 126 where the guys approach him about advertising for the car, you know. Yeah. I think the villain he fights in that is the kangaroo. Remember that guy?
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's some good like kind of loser villains they came up with here.
That's what I loved about this run of Spider-Man because it's like pretty much every issue there'd be a different villain and he'd just beat him up, you know. And then there you go. But there'd be a long story though too from issue to issue. But you'd see all these different villains come in each issue and Spider-Man have to fight. So it was awesome.
Wasn't this also I think around the time that they were going to have Dr. Octopus marry Aunt May?
I don't know when that was.
That was
exactly.
Yeah,
it's around this time.
Somewhere, yeah.
I want to say it was probably after this, but can't remember.
My guess is before.
Oh, really? This is part of the show we give.
Yep, there it is. 131. The classic cover where Spider-Man's swinging and saying, "No, this wedding will not take place, but it will, Wallcrawler, over your dead body." With this ring, Ivy Webb.
Oh, that's great.
What a classic.
Ivy Webb. All right, Jack, so what are you giving Spider-Man 141, 1 out of 10?
You know what? I don't have a lot of complaints, so I think I'm going to give it an 8. Solid art, very good story. I really don't have anything bad to say about it.
Yeah, I like it even more than you. I give it a 9 out of 10. This is what I want out of a comic book. This is great. This is good stuff.
I mean, it could have used some Eternity Century. That would have made it better, but we can't always get what we want, I guess.
Yeah, this is good stuff here. So 9 out of 10 for me. So there it is, The Amazing Spider-Man. All right, Jank, what do you have for us next week? All
right, so we're going to do next week. It's time to go back to DC and take your medicine a little bit. Yeah. We're going to do the DC characters I'm sure everyone has been chomping at the bit for us to talk about. Hawk and Dove.
What?
Yep.
Who canceled?
Hawk and Dove. So the one good thing about this, we're finally going to get to talk about a little guy by the name of Rob Liefeld.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Detective Chimp, and I was like going to be real happy. Rob Liefeld. On DC.
Yeah, he was the artist here.
What year is this?
This is 1988.
Oh.
Yeah. It's a 5-issue limited series. We're going to do number 4. Hawk and Dove number 4 from 1988.
So this had to be one of his first things then.
Yeah, I think this might predate New Mutants just a little bit.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
Wow, how about that? I have no knowledge of Hawk and Dove whatsoever.
I know them briefly. Like, if you showed me pictures of them, I would definitely be like, oh, yeah, that's Hawk and Dove. But do I know much about their backstory? No.
That's more than me. What issue did you say we're doing?
Number 4. It's a very Rob Liefeld cover where Hawk's got a bunch of big guns and
a lot of pockets.
A lot of ammo. Yeah.
No feet visible?
No, it's Peter. Well, yeah.
There's always
one of them's in
smoke.
Shadow.
Yeah. It's always something hiding the feet. All right, so that's next week here on the Big Show. Again, check us out on YouTube. We're doing some things over there, you know. You can go over there, subscribe, do all that kind of stuff.
And videos sometimes.
Yeah, and if you have some issues you'd like for us to review, please suggest them so we don't have to do Hawk and Dove. Yeah, that's not good. But so until then, don't get any jank on you.